Hey there! Today we're going to be talking about this ink. This ink was sent to me by Philip Laafkulle again. This is Waterman Audacious Red. He sent me a sample and I threw it in some pens. I threw it all over myself. It's even on my shirt today. I'm not sure how well you can see that, but it's there. It was one huge disaster. That's all my fault and completely acceptable. After all, you do Inkcyclopedia or you don't. Audacious Red already says it's a very red. I like it. The only problem I had was that I couldn't get it to work in a flex pen. Could have been the pen or the specific paper, I don't know. Apart from that, pretty good experience. Definitely a nice red, and that's all there's to it. So I think you need to see this in action. That's all I have to say about it. And Philip, thanks for supplying us with this sample. That's all there's to it. I hope you enjoy, and I'll see you later. Bye bye. Alright, so here we go with Waterman Audacious Red. Start with a bit of fine writing. Just get something a little bit out of the way there. Here we go. Fine. Audacious is one of those words that is fantastic, but that you don't really get an opportunity to use in everyday life a whole lot. So let's use it here. Medium writing. Then we have broad. Ambulance in the background. Not sure whether you can hear it. Perhaps the ambulance thought this was blood or something. Someone called in medical emergency team. Now we need to do us some flex, huh? And the pen runs dry. Yeah, I already had some issues yesterday when I inked this up to get this ink to write in a flex nib. It doesn't seem to like that. Normal writing is one thing. No, this is really terrible. Let me just grab the vial, the sample vial. I'm just going to ink this up because I got the feeling the feed isn't saturated properly. There we go. This sometimes happens. I always try to check it before I start recording the videos, but sometimes it seems to work for a bit and then it just stops. Or you see, it just does not like this. Very strange. This is a very extreme reaction. I can hardly get flow going. And it stops again. No, this pen is not a great combination. Let me just adjust the nib and feed a bit. That's all I'm going to do. This is not a great ink for this pen, apparently. Let's do a bit of fat writing. See some startup issues there too. Reds are always a bit peculiar. I've had a lot of these experiences where red inks give me some startup issues. I'm not exactly sure what it is, whether it's a specific type of dye that doesn't flow so freely in an ink. I just don't know. Okay. Then I think, I forgot our passes. That means we'll have to do our passes right here. See, it doesn't really flow well there either. Having some issues with that. Maybe it's the paper, maybe it just doesn't like Rhodia paper a whole lot. That sometimes happens. It is dry, so it dries fairly quickly. I think that means we can first have a look at the bastard brush. And then this is not entirely dry yet, so first I want to have a look at the ink. I seem to get some shading. I like the red color that I'm seeing here. It looks pretty cool. A little bit of shading, goes from a darker red to a lighter red. I like that. Okay, it's also a pretty fast drying ink, which is also nice. There we go, second pass. And I think actually that we may as well just go for that moment you've all been waiting for. The Tardif test. Ink does not want to stick to the blade. Also, it's a little bit disturbing to put red ink on a blade, I think. But okay. I'm just going to put this up to shield myself. Brown benchmark. And there's a benchmark. There is a benchmark. Whoever finds this probably thinks I'm a serial killer or something. But that's alright. That's alright. Yeah, I'm gonna have a cookie. I bet you can hear me munching. How about that? Third pass. And then the eyedropper of death. Wonder what that is in French. La pipette de la mort or something. Doesn't really matter. There's water everywhere, there's ink everywhere, bloody hell. I think we can start to work on a scorecard. Here we go, pen. Got everything going. Where's my little... Here we go. Oh, now there's ink here. Oh, bloody hell. Ink on the paper everywhere. Okay, so before we move on to the copier paper, I think we can start a bit with cleaning. Well, I can't say I've cleaned this yet, but judging it pretty much dissolves in water, I'm pretty sure it won't be a huge issue, although in my experience reds can be a little bit complicated to clean out of a pen. It takes a bit more time. Bleed through we'll have to assess later. The color is a red, I would say. The shading, well, there is some. I'm going to give that a middle score. It's definitely not fantastic, but it is okay. Flow I have some issues with. It's not terrible, but it's definitely not the best I've ever seen. Feathering we'll assess later. Then we have drying time. Well, that, in all honesty, even on this Rhodia paper, seems to be pretty good, full marks. And then we have waterproofness, which we will assess now. Just grabbing a tissue to get rid of the excess ink there. The regular writing has been eradicated, and this is pretty much, well, that has suffered too, so I don't... You know, this would be real watery, real writing, and you don't usually write with 6mm nibs, I suppose. So I'm going to give that lower score. Then we need to change papers. Here is some regular Copier paper, nothing fancy. I'm grabbing with great fear my fine/flex pen. Let's start with a bit of fine writing. Then we move on to medium. To broad. And finally to italic. And then we have the moment I've been dreading, flex writing. And there is no noticeable inflow whatsoever. No, it's really, this ink I would not recommend for flex pens. Maybe it's just me, maybe it's my pen, but this doesn't seem to work well. Then all we want is some fat writing. Letter T. And that's pretty much all there's to it. Now I want to know what we've got. Bleed through is terrible. Very pronounced in the broad, pronounced in the italic, a little bit here and there medium, and pretty much nothing in fine. 6mm nib, serious bleed through. This is from the Brown benchmark, so that doesn't really count. Feathering is quite pronounced right there in the flex writing. In the broad writing you see it a bit too. It's not extremely pronounced, but it's definitely present. So no perfect score there. As to the other paper, the Rhodia, bleed through is significant for the Brown benchmark. For the passes, for the normal writing it seems okay, although with this, the flex that had some issues, it bled through. We see the red going from red to a bit darker red. There is some nice shading. It's not excessive, but it's definitely there. So I would say that bleed through is a, well, it doesn't, well, yeah, of course it depends on the paper, but you know what, I find this in a broad nib that's quite juicy, fairly pronounced. I'm going to give that the lowest score there. And then we have feathering, and I find that a medium score. So inkage is 2, 5, 7, 9, 11, 12, 15. Now all we need to do is compare this ink to another ink, and I realize as we speak that I have not yet inked up my comparison pen, which is absolutely fine because I'm such a fascinating person. I can just ink up a pen while I'm entertaining you. Red inks are inks that I don't use on a daily basis. However, they do have their uses, and one of the uses is of course grading papers, which is something I happen to do. Although, to be honest, I don't really like using red ink for that, because it scares off students. It's very confronting. So I tend to use other inks, for example green, because I like showing students what can be improved, instead of marking what is wrong. You see, green is a color we happen to associate with good things. So that's what I like to do. Okay, I have my ink prepared. It was an extremely entertaining anecdote, I'm sure. I'm really squeezing ink into this feed because I want the bloody thing to write. So what we have here, bloody hell. What we have here is Waterman Audacious Red. And it stops writing again. That is a fairly horrendous performance. And then here I have something else. Oh come on, Chinatown. There was an Inkcyclopedia entry on this. And I would find the two fairly comparable, to be completely honest. Two very bright reds. I like them both. I think they're both cool. And both perform well, although I was actually able to put this Chinatown red in a flex pen and actually have it flex, as you can see there, as opposed to this Waterman Audacious Red that of course does it perfectly fine now, because why wouldn't it, after all the review is done. Oh, the things a reviewer has to suffer, you have no idea. Anyway, I hope this was useful. Inkcyclopedia entry for Waterman Audacious Red. Thanks again, Philip, for supplying us with this nice ink. I hope this was useful, guys, and I'll see you next week. Bye!